Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport, and this weekend we had rounds 3 and 4 of the 2025 Formula E World Championship coming from Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, and they were two very different races. The first race was a lot of fun to watch. It was pretty crazy at times and we had a great run into the finish. Race 2, not so much. It was a pretty dull affair. Definitely the weaker of the two races. But I think the big takeaway from this weekend is Taylor Barnard and Oliver Rowland are two really fantastic British drivers. And honestly, you cannot predict the Formula E Championship whatsoever. 2025 so far has been a complete mess. Last year's champion, Pascal Wehrlein, retired in race 1. He didn't score points in the first race at Jeddah because he had a puncture after contact. And he only finished 8th in race 2. He has a 3rd place in Mexico, and that's his best finish. He's down in 8th in the championship. Former champion Jake Dennis, he's finished 4th twice, and that's it. He's down in 9th. Another former champion, Nick De Vries, has had better days in motorsport. He's had a rough ride of it over the last few years. He's having the best Formula E season since really his championship winning campaign, and he's in 10th, just behind them. It's crazy. Jean-Eric Vergne, consistent as ever, is really the only one where he's performing as you would expect because he's finishing every race in the points. And I think only he and Stoffel Van Dorn are actually doing that at the moment. They 4 races in, they finished every race and finished every race in the points. Nick Cassidy only scored his first points in the 4th race at Jeddah. That's insane. From a driver for the last 2 years who has been incredible, he has really struggled this year. Mitch Evans started the year off with a win at Sao Paulo and then has not scored points since. Retired from 2 races, and he was pretty much at the back with penalties and crashes, and I think it was him who hit Pascal Wehrlein. So he's had a pretty terrible weekend in Jeddah. Antonio Felix da Costa is 3rd in the championship, and honestly, I don't know how. He finished 2nd in Sao Paulo and 2nd in Mexico. But race 1 here, he got slammed hard into by Nico Müller. Completely tore off the back of his car. And then later in the race, he smashed the front of it off as well. And he still finished 9th. And then race 2, he gets hit by Günther at the start. And yeah, that's it. He's done. But he's 3rd in the championship. But quite a long way off, Taylor Barnard and Oliver Rowland both have 3 podiums out of 4 races. Both have a 14th place finish, funnily enough. But Oliver Rowland, 2 wins this year already and a 2nd place as well. What a fantastic... I think I said in my predictions video, there's no way Oliver Rowland is going to continue his amazing form into 2025. And he's doing just that. So, once again, Formula E has completely screwed my predictions over. I think I said Nick Cassidy was going to be 2nd in the championship. That seems increasingly unlikely. And I don't think I predicted Taylor Barnard to be as high as 2nd. But what a driver Taylor Barnard is. This was a fantastic driver. Forget how young he is. He's never won a championship, interestingly enough. He finished 2nd in the ADAC Formula 4 Championship over in Germany. He finished 2nd in Formula Regional Middle East twice. He was a race winner in Formula 3 and Formula 2, but he's never really a championship contender. In fact, he never even finished his Formula 2 season. So, honestly, he has very little experience compared to most of the guys around him. Even in Formula E, he did a couple of races last year when I think Sam Bird was injured. But he's still only done like 6 or 7 rounds. And he's honestly smashing it this year. He is a real fantastic driver, worthy of any team in any category of motorsport. I can see Taylor Barnard in Formula 1 eventually because, as I said, he is still young. He's technically still learning. He hasn't even hit his peak yet. And he's a pretty decent driver. So Taylor Barnard, definitely worth keeping an eye on. I expect big things for him in the future. Oliver Rowland, I think it's probably a bit too late in his career to sort of be talking about Formula 1. I think people forget that he was a decent Formula 2 driver back in the day. But honestly, this last year and this year, he has been smashing it. I don't know what's changed in his personal life, but if he keeps it up, I can't see why he wouldn't be champion this year. He needs to go the Jean-Eric Vergne route, I think, and just score as many points as possible and have like no DNFs. And I think at the moment he has a 17-point lead over Taylor Barnard, but the next one back is Antonio Felix da Costa, who's 29 points behind. So if he scores decent points, there's nothing stopping him from being champion, which would be a massive shock for him, and I'm sure Nissan as well. I think Nissan had a really bad patch when they took over from Renault Edams. I know they're the same company, but it's taken a long time for Nissan to have any real success. And I think after disappointing years with Sebastian Buemi, they've gone through quite a few drivers since then. But Oliver Rowland's been around a while, and he's doing a fantastic job leading that team. Other surprises, there's not really many. Sebastian Buemi is having a terrible year. Actually, envision Buemi and Frines. It's been very, very tough. Abt Cupra, I said it's the best looking car in Formula E, and I do still believe that. They are struggling a lot. Beckman and Degrassi are 21st and 22nd in the championship with no points, and they are now the only team with no points. Zane Maloney has still not scored any points. I did think he was going to have a harder job of it than Taylor Barnard, because even though I think Zane Maloney was really a top driver in Formula 2, I was surprised he made the transition to Formula E so early. I'd have thought he'd have got another season of Formula 2 in him, but apparently not. He's finding it much harder getting to grips. Obviously, he's with a team not as accomplished as McLaren, but I was still expecting better from him. He's scored no points. He's kind of on the Jehan Derouvler track at the moment, and I don't know what's happened to him. I don't know if we'll see him in anything in 2025, but you know, Zane Maloney's a decent driver. Don't really want him to follow that route as well. He needs to score some points. He is a good driver, but I think it's just going to take time to get used to it. As for the changes in the race, of course, we had the pit stops with the extra boost charging, whatever they call it. Interesting idea. I think it's better than attack mode, but I don't think they should do that and attack mode. I think it gets a little confusing to have so many different graphics on the screen, because you've got the pit stops, attack modes, energy consumption. It's all a bit much. I think with gimmicks, if you're starting a race series, the advice I would have is choose one and present it well. Presentation for your fans is the biggest thing, and I think with Formula E, they go heavy on the gimmicks. It's always been a problem in the series, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. And I really think they should just choose one. But I must admit, the attack mode this year has been improved. The four-wheel drive aspect of it, I think. We could honestly probably get rid of the power boost and just have the four-wheel drive thing. And I think the extra traction out of corners is what makes the really big difference. But it has improved, but I don't think they should do that and the charging. It should just be one or the other. I do like the charging. I think it has more to do with A, real life, but B, also an actual motorsport race where petrol, you would refuel in races, long races at least, still do. I think that works really well, and it's kind of looping back round to Formula E's roots of drivers going into the pits and jumping in another car, but not quite as dumb as that. So I do like the charging in the pits, and I think if they're going to keep it, they should replace it. Replace attack mode with the pits. Don't have both. Otherwise, as I said, first race in Saudi Arabia was pretty exciting. The last lap when Günther was catching Rowland, and we had Barnard and someone else, Nick De Vries, closing in. It looked like we were going to get a four-way fight. Didn't really happen, and Oliver Rowland only really lost because he was very low on power. I think he had to back off to get to the line. Second place is obviously better than not finishing. But it was, again, a brilliant drive from Maxi Günther. It's a shame he hit Costa in the second race, because Günther put in a fantastic drive in race one. Clearly had a fast car. But for race one was definitely, if you're only going to watch one of these races, watch the first one. You don't necessarily need to see the second one. But it was a good weekend from Formula E, as usual. This was all pretty exciting. And I think coming out of it, it's made the championship very interesting. Oliver Rowland and Taylor Barnard do have a bit of a gap. Don't know if I'll be able to maintain it. Obviously, a lot can happen. There's plenty of races left, and Formula E tends to get pretty crazy. So it's going to be an interesting ride to the end of the season. So with that, as I've left it late to upload this anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for subscribing. If you haven't, do it. And have a good one.